Okay, so let me pull up the Vafthruthnismál, and this is the Crawford translation of the Poetic Edda. It's Odin's contest with the Riddle Weaver. So the Vafthruthnismál involves the visit of Odin to the hall of a giant named Riddle Weaver. The Old Norse word or name is Vafthruthnir, who engages Odin in a contest of mythological knowledge. The poem provides not only an interesting portrait of Odin, but in the stanzas exchanged by Odin and Riddle Weaver, we also learn a great deal of random information on various myths which might otherwise be unknown. Vafthruthnismál appears in both the Codex Regius and in the manuscript AM 748-142. Odin said, "Advise me now, Frigg. I want to travel and visit the Riddle Weaver. I want to have a contest about old lore with that wise giant." Frigg said, "I would advise you, Odin, father of battles, to stay here, in the homes of the gods. I don't think there's any giant who is as wise as Riddle Weaver." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. Now I want to know what kind of hospitality there is in Riddle Weaver's hall." Frigg said, "Then travel safe and come back in one piece. Stay safe on your journeys, Odin. May your wits serve you well wherever you go when you exchange words with the giant." Odin then went to test the wisdom of that wise giant. Odin came to the hall Riddle Weaver owned, and he went straight inside. Odin said, "Hail, Riddle Weaver. I've come to your hall for the purpose of seeing you. The first thing I want to know is if you are wise, or perhaps even all-knowing." Riddle Weaver said, "Who is this man who stands in my hall? Who is this I'm speaking to? You won't leave my hall unless you prove yourself to be even wiser than I am." Odin said, "My name is Good Advisor, and I come to your hall thirsty from a long journey. After my long trip, I have need of hospitality and a good welcome, giant." Riddle Weaver said, "Well then, Good Advisor, why are you still standing up? Take a seat in my hall. Then we'll find out who knows more, the guest or his wise old host." Odin said, "A poor man, if he visits a rich man, ought to be silent or say only what he must. Too much talk will bring him harm to the guest of a grudging host." Riddle Weaver said, "Tell me, Good Advisor, if you want to test yourself, sitting in your seat in my hall, what is the name of the horse who pulls the sun over the humans below?" Odin said, "That horse is named Skinfoxy. He pulls the bright sun over the humans below. Everyone thinks he's the best horse who lives in Midgard. The mane of that horse always shines." Riddle Weaver said, "Tell me, Good Advisor, if you want to test yourself sitting in your seat in my hall, what is the name of the horse who pulls the moon east to west at night over the mighty gods?" Odin said, "That horse is named Hrimfaxi, who pulls the moon east to west every night over the mighty gods. The slobber from his mouth falls to the ground every morning, and that's the reason for the dew." Riddle Weaver said, "Tell me, Good Advisor, if you want to test yourself sitting in your seat in my hall, what is the name of the river that separates the land of the gods from the giants?" Odin said, "That river is named Ifing, which separates the lands of the gods from those of the giants. That river will run free forever. It will never freeze over." Riddle Weaver said, "Tell me, Good Advisor, if you want to test yourself sitting in your seat in my hall, what is the name of the valley where Sort will lead the final battle against the gods?" Odin said, "That valley is named Vigrid, where Sort will lead the final battle against the gods. It is 100 miles long on each side. That's why this valley is chosen." Riddle Weaver said, "You're a wise indeed, guest. Come sit at my bench. Let's talk together here. Let's wager our heads on which of us two is wiser. Here in my hall, guest." Odin said, "Tell me this first, if your wits serve you well, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did the earth come to be? Or heaven? Which one was the first, giant?" Riddle Weaver said, "The earth was made from Ymir's flesh. The rocks were made from his bones. The sky was made from the skull of that ice-cold giant. The sea was made from his blood." Odin said, "Tell me this second, if your wits serve you well, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did the moon come to be, the one that floats over the earth? Or what about the sun, giant?" Riddle Weaver said, "Mundilfari is the name of the father of the moon. He was also the sun's father. They will float across the sky every day to help the humans tell the time and season." Odin said, "Tell me this third, if you want to be called wise. If you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did the day come to be, or the night which passes above with its waxing and waning moon?" Riddle Weaver said, "Delling is the name of the father of the day, and the night is Norvi's daughter. The waxing and waning of the moon was designed by the gods to help tell the time and season." Odin said, "Tell me this fourth, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did the winter come to be, or the warm summer? When did they first come about?" Riddle Weaver said, "Vinswald is the name of the father of winter, and Swasuth's the father of summer." Odin said, "Tell me this fifth, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. Who is the oldest being, whether god or giant, who appeared in the oldest times?" Riddle Weaver said, let's see here, I lost my place. Riddle Weaver said, "Untold years ago, before the earth was made, Bergelmir was born. His father was Thuthgelmir, and Thuthgelmir's father was Aurgelmir." Odin said, "Tell me this sixth, if you want to be wise, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did Aurgelmir came to be, and what was the origin of that first giant?" Riddle Weaver said, "Drops of poison fell from Elivarger. They gelled and formed the giant. They gelled and formed the giant. All the families of us giants have our origin there. That's why we're bad, through and through." Odin said, "Tell me this seventh, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did that giant Ymir have children, if he had no woman to share his bed?" Riddle Weaver said, they say two giants, a man and a woman, grew under his armpits. One foot had a child with the other foot, and their son had 6 heads." Odin said, "Tell me this eighth, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. What is your first memory, the earliest thing you remember? I suspect you're all-knowing, giant." Riddle Weaver said, "My very first memory is of Bergelmir. Untold years before the earth was formed, I remember the wise giant laid out in his coffin." Odin said, "Tell me this ninth, if you want to be called wise, if you know it, Riddle Weaver. How did the wind come to be, the wind that blows over the sea? It's something that is seldom seen." Riddle Weaver said, there's a giant eagle named Hreisvelg who sits at the sky's end. They say that it's from his wings the wind is blown." Odin said, "Tell me this tenth. You must know the fate of all the gods, wise Riddle Weaver. How did Njord come to be among the Aesir? He has hundreds of temples and altars, but he was not born among the Aesir." Riddle Weaver said, "Wise Vanir created him in Vanaheim, and gave him as a hostage to the Aesir. At Ragnarok, he will go back home to the wise Vanir." Odin said, "Tell me this 11th. Where is the hall where men fight each other every day?" Riddle Weaver said, "All the Einherjar in Odin's hall fight each other every day. They kill each other, but then ride back from battle and sit in the evening as friends." Odin said, "Tell me this 12th. You must know the fate of all the gods, wise Riddle Weaver. Tell me the truth about the secrets of the giants and the gods, you wise giant." Riddle Weaver said, "I can tell you the truth about the secrets of the giants and all the gods, for I have visited them all at home. I've been to 9 realms beneath hell, to realms where the dead travel after hell." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. Will any humans remain alive after Fimbulvetter has passed over Midgard?" Riddle Weaver said, "Life and pulsing with life will survive. They will hide and hold Mimir's forest. They will eat the morning dew and renew the human race." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. How will there still be a son when the wolf has eaten the one that now flies in heaven?" Riddle Weaver said, "The son will have a daughter before Fenrir eats her, and that young son will travel on her mother's path when all the gods have died." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. Who are those young women who fly above the sea, who travel in the air with their craft?" Riddle Weaver said, "There are 3 rivers that fall over those young women of Mogthrasir. Their only happiness is in Midgard, though they were born among giants." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, I have often tested the mighty. Which gods will inherit Asgard when the fires of Ragnarok go out?" Riddle Weaver said, "Vithar and Vali will inhabit Asgard when the fires of Ragnarok go out. Molthi and Magni will inherit Mjolnir after Thor is killed." Odin said, "I've traveled so much, I've tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. How will Odin lose his life at Ragnarok?" Riddle Weaver said, "A wolf will swallow Odin, but Vithar will avenge him. He'll cut open the wolf's cold jaws, kill the killer of his father." Odin said, "I have traveled so much, I have tried much, and I have often tested the mighty. What did Odin whisper in Baldur's ear before he placed him on the pyre?" Riddle Weaver said, "No one knows what you said in those ancient days in your son's ear. I've spoken my aged wisdom. I've told you of Ragnarok. I've spoken with a doomed mouth. Now I know that I wagered my head against Odin's in wisdom, but you, Odin, are forever the wisest of all." And that, my friends, is the Vafthruthnismál. Any thoughts? Pretty interesting tale here. I think the thing that uh, stands out to me as we're like looking into Norse lore, I always end up. So Alex says, honestly, that's just a lot to take in. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a very thick read. Probably good, like any other book that we've read through. Probably good to take a second, third, fourth, fifth look at it, um, because it is a lot, right? There's a lot of deep and honestly, it's random. Like there's not really something that kind of ties it all together, other than like the framework in which it's presented, right? Um, but my deal is like I'm trying to go to, or I'm trying to read through this lore to find out, more things to kind of inspect. And stanza 43, something that stands out to me, Vafthrûdnir says that he's visited all of the giants and all of the gods, all of them at home. He's been to all 9 realms beneath hell. And something stands out that I don't know that I've read anywhere else, but in stanza 43, Vafthrûdnir says that he's visited realms where the dead travel after hell. Um, that's any insight on that one? Oh man, Jared. Jared's got the wrong microphone set up. Oh man. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, if you can get at, if you can get that figured out, we'd definitely like to hear from you. But I found that was interesting. To realms where the dead travel after hell. Does anybody know anything about that?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Awesome. As far as I know, I don't know anything about anything after hell. I can't think of any other mention of anything other than like the 9 realms.
Perfect. So this kind of hints at there possibly being just a tad bit more that we don't know about, which is fantastic. But it looks like so Ben, one of our other folks that is not with us tonight, did mention last week about hell not being a permanent place, and the Vafthruthnismál confirms that. It is not a permanent place. There is an afterlife. So if we tie this together to potentially what we've read about Thor's Hall, we know about Valhall, we know about Folkvanger, but Thor's Hall, maybe Freyr's Hall, maybe other halls of the gods that, you know, that could be a dwelling place or a meeting place or some kind of place that the dead after hell can go to. That makes a whole lot more sense now. You know, as we're inspecting the lore, we do understand that most all of it either was written by Christian people trying to fit a narrative, or written with a Christian slant in the narrative. So when I look at the lore, I try and look at those things that don't make sense from my own past experience with Christian lore. So this is definitely one stanza that stands out pretty strongly, that hell is not a permanent place, which further, I mean, I guess a follow-up question to that would be, or a follow-up thing to think about would be, you know, if hell's not a permanent place, we know it's not like a punishing place. That much is true. It's kind of like a holding tank for all the dead. What is the purpose of hell? So to answer Alex's question, Alex had asked a question in the chat. What stanza was that? I'm looking in Crawford's translation at stanza 43. So he says, I can tell you the truth about the secrets of the giants and all the gods, for I have visited them all at home. I've been to 9 realms beneath hell, to realms where the dead travel after hell. So it's not even so much that there's realms that are past hell, but specifically the dead travel to these realms after hell. So in my mind, I'm thinking that this may be a place of decision, potentially. It's a meeting place. Obviously, all the dead are there, and all the dead can move from hell. It's not, you're not bound to hell.
Maybe it's like a Dante's Inferno kind of thing, and you end up in hell, and then you get like sorted out in wherever you go, like murderers and rapists go here, and or good people go there, or something like that.
Perhaps. Perhaps. It may be more akin to a type of purgatory than we would initially believe. But it's not a purgatory in the sense that it's painful to be there, other than it being, you know, insanely cold. But that's definitely an interesting part. And then also, like, in stanza 47, the son will have a daughter before Fenrir eats her, and that young son will travel in her mother's past when the gods have all died. So, kind of a mythological nod to what we already know about science, with stars exploding, and the aftermath of that creating a new star, which is that's actually really cool. Any other thoughts? Anything else stand out to y'all?
I kind of wonder at what point did he know it was Odin? Like, did he just know like all along, like the whole time, or did he just figure it out like right at the end?
It looks like he may have figured it out near the end because, you know, Odin calls himself good advisor, and if we know anything about Odin, he would definitely be in disguise. Um, so he probably had figured it out when Odin started hammering him with questions about Ragnarok, which would not be unsurprising.
Right.
So what do you guys think about stanza 49? So it looks like stanza 49 is kind of like the explanation. Um, but it's three young women of Mogdrasir. I wonder who those are. Potentially the Nornir. Um, looking. Yeah, who are those young women who fly above the sea, travel in the air with their craft? That sounds like some witchery. I could be wrong. I'll have to look into that more because I'm not sure that's so clear.
On I'm reading off of the Voluspa.org one, and they have a note for stanza 47, but it says the maidens, apparently Norns, like the giant maids in Voluspa 8. These Norns, however, are kindly to men. That's all it says there.
It's odd. It's odd that they would like distinguish them from like the Nornir that we're familiar with by saying like these Norns are good to men. It's interesting. Definitely some more stuff to look into. They also so the other cool thing is in stanza 44 and 45, we go into the attestation of a extinction event. It looks like. Of course, Odin is talking about the Fimbulvinter. And it looks like two entities called Life and Pulsing with Life will survive. Looks like a man and a woman that renews the human race. That's interesting. So definitely some content to kind of dig into and go back into the Old Norse and see what they're talking about, because some of this stuff isn't like readily apparent, but it's definitely like it's the thing that I like about the Poetic Edda and all of the books contained is it's really honestly a book where they give you enough to go off of, but it's constantly producing hints to other areas of the lore that you'll need to inspect. Um, that's really cool. I like that it does that because it's done that for pretty much every single lore piece that we've broken down so far. But just pulling apart some points for this, of course, we have um, the name of the Father of the Moon. I believe we also looked into that in the Vafthruthnismál. And then we also have some entities that are named for the parents of like literal days and literal nights. So that's also, not only do we have, magical entities that are the parents of the sun and the moon, we have magical entities that are parents of the day and night. So when they name the day and the night, it looks like it has like some sort of like anthropomorphism in there. We're kind of like giving humanoid figures to mythological concepts, which is pretty interesting. And of course, we have the retelling of, the creation story that is in Voluspa with Ymir, which is, another confirmation or an affirmation of the original creation story or the creation myth in Norse mythology. Um, we also have some more info on Ragnarok, which is really cool. The name of the valley, the fate of the gods after Ragnarok is ended. That's some really good, strong lore to dig into. We've also got the names of the horses that pull the sun and the moon, which is really cool. Some more names to concepts. So the story within the story here. So we have all of this, all of this wisdom within the actual conversation. As for this story, of course we have the similar to the Grimnismál from last week. We have Odin and Frigg arguing about whether or not he should do something, which again is kind of humorous. It shows the character of the gods and how they're not just these perfect uh, archetypes of godlike purity. The gods argue with one another. Um, we've got a nice little banter between husband and wife, which is I find it humorous. But within all of this wisdom, we do have it placed in a framework of yet another journey of Odin. Um, for a specific purpose, and again, his specific purpose is implied here that he's trying to find out more information about Ragnarok and whether or not he will live through Ragnarok or who does live through after that. Um, how he'll die, how he'll be avenged, which is important information to Odin, right? Through the Voluspa, through the Grimnismál, and then now the Vafthruthnismál. It seems that the Voluspa is kind of the catalyst for Odin's journey to find wisdom. He's trying to frantically find out exactly what will happen in the hopes that he'll be able to escape potentially, or that he knows that everything is well after he leaves from existence. But yet another story of Odin and his journey on to wisdom, which is definitely important when we're considering Norse mythology. So it's a story within a story, which is awesome. So I do have one more question. Do you guys think that so they wagered their heads, so it's a battle of wits to the death? Um, what do you guys think happened after stanza 56? Did you think that Odin spared him, or did they pay up and he lost his head over a game of wisdom?
I kind of like to think that Odin might have just let him go, but there's no telling. It didn't seem like they were being too hostile about it or anything with each other. So
Maybe they just drank and laughed it off.
maybe so.
Yeah, yeah, maybe so. It doesn't look so. Yeah, absolutely. When you compare the Grimnismál, like what happens in the end of the Grimnismál to the end of the Vafthruthnismál, it's not the same ending, right? It kind of is open ended, where the Grimnismál is very much so you're done, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, they probably perhaps it was some friendly competition, like yeah, yeah, if I lose, I die. If you lose, you die. Um, kind of a funny sense of humor there, but it doesn't say explicitly. I'd like to think, Odin being as inconsistent as he is, probably didn't see it all the way through. So Alex did a Google search on stanza 43. Did you find anything of value out of that search, Sir Alex?
I've found a couple different translations, but nothing that necessarily gives an idea. Um, Crawford seems to be the only translation that says something about after hell. The translation on Voluspa.org is just of the runes of the gods and the giants' race, the truth indeed can I tell. For to every world have I won, to 9 worlds came I, to Niflheim beneath, the home where dead men dwell. So nothing about something after hell. I did, however, which I'm going to watch this after we're done here. Crawford does have a reading and commentary on his YouTube page. So he might give some more insight as to why he translated it the way he did.
Yeah, absolutely. I do know like one of Crawford's things was to preserve the original intent of the text. And in this conversation, we're getting into some highly manipulative topics. We do know and can understand that a lot of this stuff was written with a specific slant. Um, so, perhaps prior translations were biased to the bias. Don't know. But yeah, I'll definitely be also checking that out as well. Um, Intent and purpose here is just to kind of dig in, but it's interesting that that would be the translation that he would do. I know that he's very the great thing about Crawford is he's very literal in his translation. He's not an Alcatraz himself, so he doesn't really have any skin in the game per se. So he's not writing with a bias that like there's this thing and that thing and a whole bunch of unverified personal knowledge. So I think that's important. Um, yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out as well. That's good stuff. Good stuff. Good find. So I think as far as this week is concerned, we've run through the Vafthruthnismál. We've run through quite a lot of lore. So, what do you guys think? Should we move on to contemporary works or should we look for more lore to read through? Is there anything important that you guys think um, someone beginning into Alcatraz would want to look at or would necessarily need to look at?
I really like being able to read into the older stuff, but also it would be nice if we could move on to some contemporary authors because there are a lot of people that are around our ages in the same kind of seasons of their life, and so it'd be really interesting to hear other people's perspectives that are more, like us too.
Absolutely. So we got a couple of books picked out for that one. And we may we probably should take it like a chapter at a time and pick out like probably some of the more important things. The one that I would always recommend we start with, because it's a light read, would be the Intro to Alstru by Dr. Matthias Nordvig. He is one. He holds a PhD in these areas, which is important, right? Because it's specific training. But he also is the one of the co-hosts of the Nordic Mythology podcast. So he has some definitely some like you know how do you say this, some contested personal views on things regarding essentialism and things of that nature, which we don't necessarily have to get into for a basic course in Alstru. But we've got that one. We have not necessarily contemporary, but Carolyn Larrington has a story on the Mists of the North, and then we have another very very thick read by O.E. Torval regarding more myths and legends of the North. So really, it's up to you guys. I would probably recommend, just as kind of like a starter into contemporary, Matthias Nordvik's book, which is, like I said, it's a really light read, right? So it's easy to dig through. It provides more structure, which can be nice. So that would be my recommendation, but it's up to you guys, whichever you want to tackle first. We've got Matthias Nordvig, Carolyn Larrington, or O.E.G. Torval. But yeah, all three contemporary authors. And then the other great thing, so for you guys listening to the recording later on, none of these authors that have chosen to kind of go over the basics are tied in any way to any kind of supremacist ideas or corrupted ideology, which is amazing, because we want to be very specific about what we read into and what we expose ourselves to. But these three are very reputable authors. Some of them have, contested personal beliefs, but that doesn't really bleed into their work on Norse mythology. But yeah, I would say we probably dig into Matthias Nordvig's book next week. And then Jared says Rigsthula could be interesting to do as well. So yeah, we could probably dig through the Rigsthula and maybe chapter 1 of Nordvig's book. What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
Sweet. Okay, so again, so as we go into the contemporary stuff, y'all, I'll be reading through some of this stuff, but all of these books are available on Amazon. Nordvig's book is ridiculously cheap. I think it's like 15 or 20 bucks, not much. But kind of like, if you want to have it available, I would recommend buying it. It'll come in a few days off Amazon, or if you do Audible. I mean, there's ways. I'll let you guys figure that out. But yeah, we'll do Nordvig next week, chapter 1, and then we'll dig into the Rigsthula, and I will see you guys then.